So I just watched Guns Akimbo, and due to a Twitter controversy with the director, I had to watch it at home on YouTube. So I may be making this video for nobody, but that's okay, I make all my videos for nobody.
Someone's trying to kill me! Please, go drive now!
I'm Miles, and this is the story of the worst day of my life.
Guns Akimbo is about Miles, played by Daniel Radcliffe, who makes the mistake of going online and trolling somebody who happens to work for Schism.
Another schism.
Schism picked random psychos, weirdos, and criminals and made them fight each other to the death. So the internet loved it.
Now we've seen this trope before in 2016's Nerve, which is kind of similar to Running Man, which is kind of similar to Death Race. But it's more like Nerve meets Wanted. It feels like the love child of Baz Luhrmann and Guy Ritchie directed this movie, and the team who edited Suicide Squad and Scott Pilgrim edited it. Also, can we retire the Wilhelm scream? I'll even settle for the one last job and I'm done trope. The main conflict in the movie is that Miles, who isn't a fighter, has to go fight someone who's a really good fighter. Her motivation is that
I gotta kill you. Schism said they would wipe my slate clean.
Clean slate. It wiped your record clean. Clean as a clean slate.
Shut up about the clean slate, just go!
Which is funny that they borrow the worst part of The Dark Knight Rises. There's a big tone problem in this movie because it's obviously not made for boomers to consume, but there's a lot of jokes and or statements in the movie that only boomers would really like and agree with. The portrayal of internet interaction or, trolling is done in such a cartoony way where it's like Miles basically goes home and rather than play video games, it's like, yeah, I'm going to spend 3 hours trolling. This is like my pastime. After he gets the gun stapled to his hands, he goes outside and he says, it's been so long since I haven't had my phone in my face. Everything looks like it's in HD.
Okay, boomer. Right? Okay, boomer.
Like, who the fuck talks like that? Also, I'm supposed to believe that he's a part-time internet troll who doesn't know what the phrase fuckboy means. There's another line later in the movie where a Gen Xer tells Miles to stop your whining, you millennial piece of shit. If I didn't just look it up, I would assume that Jason Lee Howden was like 65 years old. But in contrast, the movie's like visual overload the whole time. Again, think of the fastest and most annoying parts of Suicide Squad. It's one of those movies that keeps insisting on its own quirkiness rather than just allowing you to fall in love with it. If it was a manic pixie dream girl, you would end up more annoyed than enchanted. Also, this is a real nitpick, but so feel free to ignore it. But if Backpage.com can't stick around because of the government, then how are these guys supposed to be live streaming murders all the time? But again, we're kind of in a cartoon world, but that's actually one of the kind of issues that we have. A lot of the editing wants you to think cartoon world, but something like Scott Pilgrim does such a better job because you're led to believe in the narrative of the movie that this is actually what that world is like. This one still tries to sell you that it's mostly our world, and so when really cartoony lame things happen, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, one of the scenes that did kind of work for me was there's a part in these kinds of stories where the main character, the hero, has to go meet the mentor, and the mentor teaches him that, he has to take responsibility and become a hero, or maybe he just has to learn a lesson about, that he has it within him the whole time or something like that. But this time, it's him meeting a homeless guy, and we go through all of those tropes, and ultimately, it's just the only scene in the movie that felt really genuinely self-aware.
Oh, it's one thing to say you can't face violence, but when it faces you, you better be ready.
And bonus points that the homeless guy's played by the ever hilarious Rhys Darby.
When the shit goes down, you better be ready. You better be ready.
Right, yeah.
But then basically after a bunch of boring chase scenes and action scenes or whatever that kind of, lead us down a very plodding and predictable plot, the movie generally kind of irritated me. I think it legitimately gets into kind of irresponsible territory because the first time Miles has to kill somebody, he says, "No extra lives, no respawns. I just killed this guy." And I think that really plays into the idiotic notion that gamers can't tell the difference between reality and video games, that he somehow is just now realizing, oh wow, there's like repercussions when you shoot people, this isn't just fun. Which is also super undercut by the movie itself by having him get guns, stapled to his hands or bolted into his hands, and then it seems like a minor inconvenience to him the whole movie. It's kind of how I feel about Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is basically a story about nerds, but written by people who aren't nerds and meant to be viewed by people who aren't nerds. So it's just all these horrible cliches.
Hello.
But what's so weird about this one is that the movie's way too violent and gross and, colorful and fast for, 55-year-old people to want to watch it. But a lot of the sentiments in the movie are things that 55-year-olds would totally agree with that the target audience would think was stupid. I'm like perfectly in that target demo and I was horribly annoyed the whole time. So ultimately, Uncle Charlie deserved a lot better. Till next time. It can feel sometimes like we're plagued with reboots, remakes, and sequels. Surely it wasn't always like this. But when did it start? And will it be like this forever? Well, to get into that, let's talk about something called the 20-year cycle. We see it in all forms of art: fashion, music, movies.
Hello.